Today, we're going to talk about the bystander effect. Are you familiar with this term? And can you share anything with us about the bystander effect?
Yes, I am familiar with the term. I guess as a teacher, we have to do different little assemblies every year. And I'm sorry, this is when I was a public school teacher. So during, I want to say it was the month of October, during bullying month,
Mm-hmm.
um, we talk about bullying, and then we talk about witnesses and doing the right thing. And essentially, the bystander effect is something where people don't offer help because they think somebody else is going to offer help. So an example that I would use for the students would be if you saw a car accident, but because there were other people around, well, of course, somebody's going to call 911. Or maybe you don't think is as bad as it was, so the people involved in the accident are going to handle it. And I would always let them know that, you should use discernment with regards to what it is that you're reporting. But if you felt it were an emergency, then maybe you would call for help. And the students would say, well, what if a lot of people are calling? And my response would always be, well, maybe they'll get there quicker, right? Because, sometimes it always
Right.
takes them a minute to even respond to certain people's cries for help anyway. So I hope that at least my examples help them understand why it's important to do something if you can do something, and if you feel like something needs to be done. Because check it, everybody doesn't feel like they need to do something, right? And I don't think people should be pushing people to do anything more than what they want to do. However, I do think that if you felt like, oh, damn, well, then where is that going? And if it's just because you want to watch, then, well, maybe that's a conversation to be held. So,
Exactly. And one of the things that we're going to touch on and answer today is why people are often hesitant to offer assistance when they're witnessing, a crime, someone being victimized. And that was a great example and definition that you gave of the bystander effect. And the example I had was to ask our audience, like, imagine witnessing someone in distress. And this is a person who needs help. You think most of us would step in, right? Us being adults, because you gave the example of your children and your students. And I have an example of that I heard that happened in the school district that I grew up in, where bullying is hell. And it's really tough, especially when trying to break this down for children. But we have adults who would witness something, and the first action may be to freeze, or they'll pull out their phone, not to call for help as you would think. It would be to record it and then
mhm.
post it later for popularity. That's really messed up. Research shows that the larger the group, and this could be in person or virtually, but the larger the group, the less likely anyone will come forward to help. And my thoughts on that, it could be fear of ridicule. There's no group setting. Why do you think that one or a few are hesitant to step up to intervene in a criminal act, or an act where a victim is reaching out for help?
Absolutely. Good question. Um, my thought, a criminal act, I guess, for me, it's easy to use it with examples. So if someone witnessed someone being murdered, right? That's a
Mhm.
criminal act that everybody can picture or has at least seen in some form or fashion, whether it was real or fictional or whatever. But somebody sees somebody get murdered. Well, maybe the person doesn't speak up because they're afraid. And I completely understand that. You have a family, you have the rest of your life. It's not your fault that they got murdered. It's that's kind of fucked up, right? But and I feel you a billion
Mhm.
percent. You didn't do it, so why should you even put yourself out there? It's kind of dangerous.
We're very familiar with like True Crime Friday and true crime shows. And Do you think that media has had an effect on us where we are so desensitized where we'll see something happening in real time, but we're watching it as if we're waiting on the next scene and the conclusion of the story that's happening right in front of us?
Absolutely. I 1 billion% believe. I'm sorry, let me not say believe. When I
Mhm.
say believe, it's because I don't have any evidence and I can't source
Right.
it. I know that media and what's programmed and what people take in has caused a spectator um, gene to be explosive in us, because it's not that we haven't had this spectator thing about us since the beginning of time. I mean, going back to just the fact that we've been a competitive people, and I mean, I'm talking niggas. We're a flashy people too, so
Mhm.
people like to watch, and there's always going to be people watching. However, the fact that we're seeing crimes or people being harmed over and over and over, it absolutely leads to just another day on the news, or just another show about whatever it is, fill in the blank. And because it's not special anymore, you aren't really worried about the outcome because you already know what the outcome's going to be. They've programmed this response in you to not even be mad when there's no justice. Even though if you were watching a movie and you were watching this crime happen, inside you're wanting to know that the person gets justice or what happens. But again, that's in a spectator role. Nobody's expecting you to do anything when you're watching a movie except for feel. And
Mhm.
when we watch these things on TV, it it turns off our action gene or our action switch, and it turns on our couch potato switch. So because it's available for everybody, if it was really that fucked up, somebody would do something about it, wouldn't they?
Right.
But that's where we are. People are just watching, a bunch of people are just feeling, but nobody's doing. And then the people that do start to do, well, that's a whole other side of why people only watch and don't act.
When you were explaining that, something came to mind, and I was thinking about our sister Shahrazad Ali and her book "Are You Still a Slave?" And I'm thinking about like why would someone freeze? Why would a group of people freeze and watch this event play out in front of them? And what came to mind was the Willie Lynch letter. Although some may have their reservations, yes, we know that Willie Lynch may or may not have existed, but this letter and the ways certainly are very evident today. And the part of it where you take one slave and beat them in front of everyone else, including women and children, to set an example. Do you think that plays a part in this bystander effect, to where something is happening right in front of their eyes, but they won't act out of fear that they'll be next, or it happened to them? Is this something that activates our "are you still a slave" gene?
Maybe. I know what I know is that buck breaking is very real.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not Willie Lynch is a real thing that happened or not, we know that we our spirit and people who were enslaved had buck breaking moments. And inside of those moments where the women have no protection because the men aren't able to do anything, and because of that disconnect, the men might not want to do anything because of the harm that come to the women that they want to protect. It's a really fucked up circle that
Mm-hmm.
happens. From there, I also know that we've always been a people to fight back in one way or
Yeah.
another. So I can't accept this defeatist mentality as much as I see people who are defeated all around me all the time. And what they don't like and what they didn't like is when people spoke up, because you got to watch that nigga. You can't trust that one, because they might say something that makes these niggas think about what all is going on. I really feel like what you said about being desensitized is something that is downplayed, because we're supposed to be better than that. So then, because we tell ourselves we're supposed to be better than that, and if it happens to me, then I would do X, Y, and Z. I've seen in real time things happen to people and they just try to get on with their life. And I get that too. Because if you just try to get on with your life, then you never really address it, then maybe you do get on with your life because we are resilient people. But if we're allowing things to fester, then it could come back and bite you. So even though you got on with your life, it's this thing that's just out there that could still do something to you. So while I know I started my example with the crime being murder, the crime could be that somebody stole something from you and maybe you can go without it because you didn't really need it.
Or it could be as petty as, you're standing in your front yard and you see a car pull up and this strange person takes your neighbor's Amazon package off the porch and you do nothing. You say, oh, they get another one. You turn around and go on about your business.
Right.
Instead
Like
of,
usually,
you know,
I've seen some reels where people don't give a shit. And while I understand that we are a tunnel vision people right now, we have reverted to cave people, that we have picked up their frequencies in a big way. And until niggas is comfortable saying that shit out loud, like maybe it's because I have uh, a relationship of sorts with people who've gone through the program, right? So then the first step is admitting there's a fucking problem. But people don't want to admit that there's a problem. And I'm so confuddled about why they're afraid of admitting there's a problem. Because once you admit there's a problem, well, now you can do something about it.
mhm.
But Tieesha, is it that niggas don't want to do anything about it? Because that's what it seems like to me. Like, yeah, we want to just be people with a problem and, we're just going to deal with the problem. And as long as we can pay our bills and, you know, eat some food and go on some trips, then it's okay. It's not really that much of a problem. Like, what is that?
It's really sad. And it's almost as if, we don't see each other as human. And because I'm pretty sure if they saw something that could happen to a human happen to a dog, they'll jump right in the middle of it. Save the pets. Hey, Peter, don't come after me for saying that. But it's kind of like that. It's like we put animals above the next human. And I'll give a quick example. I was going to save this story. Well, I can still share it on another video, but I want to drive home the point that those who witness injustice happening and sit back and do absolutely nothing, the victim sees you in the same light as the one or ones committing the actual offense. And I'll give an example. When I worked in Washington, I experienced discrimination, hostile work environment, just illegal acts, and I was the victim, but it was left up to me to fight all that on my own. And when I would look around the room to see who all was there, and I'll say, hey, can you provide a statement? You witnessed what happened. I mean, you didn't intervene to stop it while it was going on. Can you help me fight it after the fact? The response was, I don't want to get involved. Hey, I have a family, or I was focused on something else. Okay. Well, I remember when I was going off and defending myself, you were staring right at me. And these people would come to me after the fact, like, oh, yeah, good job on that. Yeah, what he did was wrong. What he did was wrong. Well, why won't you help me? Why didn't you step in the middle? I mean, as you see, no one, they couldn't come out and whoop your butt or nothing like that. It was a matter of saying, stop, what you're doing is wrong to her. And I hold all of them in the same place as the person or persons who was carrying out these actions on me, with the exception of one or two who actually stood firm, when my voice was shaking and my hands were shaking after going off because the injustice was happening, and they stood right there to help me. I would never forget that. I share that to say, as a bystander not doing anything, whatever your reasoning may be for not wanting to intervene, something so small as calling for help or just speaking up and diverting the attention. We're not saying, you're watching, it could be as extreme as a murder, but it could be something as bullying, something so innocent. And I've attended and I've also put on trainings, at my job, where we talk about changing the topic, taking the focus off the victim and getting involved that way, whichever way will not hurt you. But there are things put in place, such as the Good Samaritan Act, where you're not at fault for intervening if your intentions were good. But don't be one of the ones that sit there and watch someone being harmed and you just sit there and get off on it. That's not right.
It's not right. And while you were talking about what happened in Washington, I think about George Floyd.
Hmm.
And if there were going to be a situation where everybody could understand the bystander effect and how maybe the group can be stronger than the tyrants, um, maybe that story and situation and real life experience that we all witnessed could have been the catalyst to change how things are right now. And what I mean by that is when it was all going down, we were hearing from the witnesses, we were hearing and seeing the footage. And like you talked about earlier, people are quick to whip out their camera phone, right? Oh, I said camera phone. Oh my gosh, I'm old. Oh, man. Oh,
Don't
okay.
be ashamed. We know about them days where it was we know about them free nights and weekends. I ain't ashamed to show my age, all right? Free nights and weekends after 9.
That's all right. Millennials adulting. We'll have a
Right.
conversation about
Subscribe to the channel.
this. Subscribe to the channel. No, people pulled out their cameras, right? They pulled out their phones and they were on live, or they tried to. And for what it's worth, I can appreciate that type of move because that's dangerous too. You're facing police officers with their weapons and they don't want to be filmed. They don't want to be recorded. They don't
Mhm.
want to be on your live. So even though you might be clout chasing, if you want to stand in front of that bullet for that, more power to you. I'm not going to knock that one. But what got me about George Floyd and the witnesses were the girls. One of the girls, and I say girl because she wasn't a woman; it was a girl. She said that she felt powerless, and she said that she wanted to do something, but she couldn't move. And with all of those people around, to me, and this is just Eve, right? So I'm not saying what anybody should do. I'm just telling you what I feel like I would have done.
Mhm.
And people don't like to go there because they're like, well, you don't know what you would have done in real time. No, if you don't ever say some shit out loud, then you will never do some shit. And I know that to be true. So I'm
Right.
saying that what I think I would have done is I would have hoped that the crowd was on the same shit as me and maybe we could have just took them, right? And it was more people than it was guns. And I don't, maybe we all go to jail, right? And okay, maybe somebody gets hurt, but they were killing him. And
Mhm.
all of those people around said they were sad and they said that they felt for him. There was a lot of boo-hooing, but really, were they sad? Were they boo-hoo? Like, to me, words matter. And watching all that shit live and the recordings and the videos and stuff, I've never not had that feeling that I hope that the crowd is on the same shit I'm on because that's wrong. And if I gotta throw pieces of bread or some shit, like, no, we're interfering. Yeah, we going to jail, I guess, but hopefully we don't go to jail because what y'all are doing is wrong. And because it's more of us than them, maybe some cops with some sense show up, and take care of the situation. Like
Right.
that's how things probably should have gone. Or people keep telling us there's good ones out there, but where are they at? So in real time, I believe that the community is supposed to do something. And I get why they don't. But there were so many videos and so many times that I saw them witnesses say that they were sad and they felt like they couldn't do anything. And I'm just like, but you could have. And maybe you just don't care. So I get that too. But now we're in a situation where people have to come to terms with being fucked up individuals. And I'm not saying that you gotta, I'm not really saying that you're a fucked up individual. I'm saying that if you have an issue with how you feel about what I just described, then maybe you should do something with that. Maybe you should process that, talk to somebody about it, because I don't I don't feel any kind of way about you as much as I want people to be who they say they are. And if that bothered you, if you talking all this rah rah shit and then in real time all you doing is tweeting about it, man, fuck you.
I'm so happy you brought that up. As you said, there was more of them, the bystanders, the witnesses, than the offenders, the cops, or the race soldiers. Let me correct
Mm-hmm.
myself, the race soldiers. It brought up a name, and you may not be familiar with that name. Of course, I was keen to it as soon as I saw it because my background is psychology. Dr. Philip Zimbardo. And Dr. Philip Zimbardo, he conducted an experiment back in the 70s called the Stanford Prison Experiment. If you're not familiar with it, you don't have to go through it and read it, but there was a movie. They did a movie about it, and it's here on YouTube. It may be on some other streaming platforms. It aims to study the effects of authority and powerlessness. But it went sideways because what happened was he picked some male students from Stanford University. Half or some were assigned as guards, and the other students were assigned the role of prisoners. And it went all I mean, it just played out right in front of his eyes where he couldn't believe what he was seeing because the guards, they continue to get more and more power. They took more and more power, but the prisoners, they decided to start fighting back. And it was just chaos to where he had to end the experiment after 6 days because the guards were so cruel and the prisoners were suffering because the guards were withholding food, taking their mattresses. I think there was even one point where, well, I won't spoil it. Just make sure you go check it out. And you can actually read the study. But it was Dr. Zimbardo, his girlfriend at the time. She was also a psychology professor. She was just taken aback, like, what the heck is going on? And that was the start of them pulling the plug on it. But when you think about it, how could one, and we'll call this one the offender, how could this one have so much power over the masses?
Honestly, I just think that it's the perceived consequences of a reaction. And then from there, to me, if we got the numbers, then yeah, maybe somebody gets hurt. Maybe. Maybe, right? That's a fucking chance. But if you don't do something,
Mhm.
that nigga's gonna die. Like straight up and down. They are killing him. And
Right.
either we care or we don't. And I really feel like people don't want to have that conversation because they feel like it's gonna make them a fucked up person. I don't think that it makes you a fucked up person as much as it makes you honest. And if we get some people to be honest, then maybe we can move better. Or, we know who not to be around. Like if you out here thinking that people are gonna stand up for you or stand up for what they believe in. The reparations rally we had in DC, that turnout sucked. And I'm not saying that Tariq did a bad job. I'm saying that there is 100,000 people on the fucking internet talking about reparations in a
Mhm.
in a big way, right? But then that was not 100,000 people at that damn rally. The math ain't mathin',
Right.
Tieesha. Like
Mhm.
so, I personally think that if we just get people to be honest about who they are or just what they're talking about, then people can know who to link up with, right? You don't have to fake it to to kick it. I just, people are out here being some shit that they're not, and it's in the way of other people who are that thing, and then we're wasting time. And then we're gonna look up and it's gonna be 10 years from now and we're gonna be still in the same circle because we thought that we was doing one thing and we found out that it was some other shit. I don't have time for that. Do you have time like
I
that?
no, and I love how you stated that is because that's action that's an action. That is a call to action. That is a solution. And starting with listening to this video, I hope those listening who may have inadvertently in the past been affected by the bystander effect, to now that you know what is going on, you do something about it. You stand up and you don't be a coward and just let violations occur in front of you. Gives you an opportunity to link up with those who will take action. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because my stance now is self-defense. I go into a situation knowing that I might have to get out of something on my own. I may have a lot of witnesses watching the entertainment, but I may have to get out of it on my own. So that, keeps me on my toes, keeps me on my game to be a hard target. But it's good to know that I have you in my corner that won't just sit around and watch something happen for your own entertainment. So
No,
I'm
that's
happy you
real.
brought that up.
That's real, Tieesha. I remember, and if I can find it, maybe you'll share it or post it or whatever. But I remember posting on Facebook around the time, maybe it was George Floyd, but it might have been another hashtag because look, there's so many, and I hate that I don't know all their names. Um, I think maybe one day I'm gonna try to learn as much as I can
Mhm.
about everybody in a specific year because maybe that's more doable. Maybe I got to do a specific month. I don't know. We are harmed so much that
Right.
people don't care, and then they will literally bitch about, well, if it was a little white girl with blonde hair, then we would be getting all this attention. Nigga, you are part of the problem. You are part of the fucking problem, but you don't get it. Um, but what I posted, I said, I really hope that I don't just be a hashtag
Mhm.
because, you know, I hope that y'all are who you say you are because it's only our lives, right? People have lost their lives for less. Literally, they keep telling us that, our ancestors died for the right to vote. No, nigga,
No,
they died because
really.
they look like you and me, and we're a very special people, and they don't want us to be here. And as it stands, they can't really do anything about it unless you let them. And now we're back into are you just gonna allow some shit to happen or you gonna do something about it? So, but if you
You made
don't
me think about
address the
something.
problem, then where are we going? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought about something. I remember your comment a few minutes ago about the police. Where are the good ones to intervene and do something? And as majority of people know, if not you now know that I was a police officer for just about a decade. And one thing that I carried with me every day was this movie. I saw it when I was about 12, Tales from the Hood. And that episode where the civil rights leader, I forgot his name in it, but the crooked cops, they beat him up and then drugged him and, drove his car into the water. So he came back as a zombie to, go after the crooked cops. But there was a black cop there. And he was like, at the end, he said, I brought him back to you. Was that okay, brother? But he ended up, you know, destroying him. Like, where were you at when I needed you, brother? And so
Right.
he ended up going to the nut house. And that stuck with me. And it was a lot of situations where I'm like, you know what? Do something, act. And that's why, I had a target on my back for a long time. And that's why, I'm not in law enforcement anymore. And I want to link up with another brother. His name is Brian Bentley. I purchased his books, and shout out to some other brothers and sisters, some Black brothers and sisters in blue, to include retired Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. And I do intend to speak more about being a Black police officer in the future. But that's absolutely a great question, because it's like, when you're being wronged and violated by the police, who do you call? It's like, okay, so my answer to that was we need more brothers and sisters who think and look like us, in the uniform. Because I would love to get, if I was having a traffic infraction or I needed help and called 911, I would love for Tieesha Essex to show up versus, the other ones that could show up.
Absolutely. And man, I mean, in the service industry, don't we want that?
Mhm.
Like, I know niggas have their favorite Uber Eats driver. I know it. Like, I don't, but like, if I ever have a really good one, in the back of my head, I'm like, man, can you be the one that brings my shit? Like, cause everything is perfect, and I don't think you ate my fries. Everything
Right.
is just exactly what I want it to be, and
Mhm.
that's just with my food. Imagine if we could have the same type of peace of mind when someone's coming to help, but when we call them people for the house being on fire, not only does the fire truck show up, but them other people show up, and then them other people show up, and now I'm getting arrested because I'm concerned about my house that's on fire. Like, what the
Right.
hell is going on? Um,
Exactly.
so I
So,
would love for you to definitely, I hope, and push that out there. For
yes, I do intend to do that. Actually, I'm due to do a video on an incident that occurred back in December. We talked about this offline, so I intend to speak on that sometime this weekend as well to get that out there. I really love our conversation today, and we definitely provided a lot of solutions and actions. And we wanted to leave our listeners with this thought. Remember, you have the power to break the bystander effect. Be the one who steps up and makes a difference. And the graphic on the screen, it gives the acronym SQUID. And the first one is stop to ask questions. And shout out to you, Eve. You always give honorable mention to Neely Fuller Jr., author of the United Compensatory Code Concept System at www.producejustice.com. I hope I got the title right. I'm looking for my book around me. But questions and answers eliminates confusion. And that's exactly what SQUID is. Stop to ask questions to better understand.
There you go.
And then let's go ahead and let's speak on that one. What comes to mind when you hear stop to ask questions to better understand?
Well, I mean, literally what you said, people are making things too complicated, and that's another thing that I'm gonna give to Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He always he didn't always, when I've had conversations with him, he's told me that I overcomplicate things and that people overcomplicate things, and the simplest answer is the answer, but people don't want to focus on the question. So if you do what we do on tests, or at least what they used to tell you on tests, if you don't know the answer to number two, just skip it and you come
Mhm.
back at the end. We don't have time.
No.
And this test is one of those tests where you don't get to go back and answer the question. So if you skip it, that could be a detrimental move on everything around you. So, I know that that seems really deep when we were just talking about, it's just, it was a car accident, stop to ask questions. All right, fine. I'll call 911 Eve. If I see a car accident, all right, if you're there, I'm happy that you were able to get there. But
Mhm.
I think that when we're talking about what people are really experiencing, and then what people are really witnessing, and then again, what people have been programmed with, y'all don't even look at each other as people. And
No.
I think that maybe that's a question people should start with. Like, why don't we see somebody else as deserving? And I promise you, you're going to get really uncomfortable with the answer. But once you get down to the why, you can start to do something about it. Like Squid says, to better understand, when you can imagine what's going on, you can decide on a plan. And that's really the basis of what I believe Mr. Fuller has been trying to teach me about overcomplicating things. Um, the racist white supremacists want to confuse us. And a lot of us have just succumbed to it because it's easier. It is way easy to just accept shit as is and then do what they tell you to do. Because essentially, you can live your life like that. I mean,
Mhm.
you might get harassed, you might get, messed with, and you'll just accept it because, they don't like us, and that's your life. And if that's your life, then again, when you stop to ask these questions, you'll get real uncomfortable when you get the answer. And from there, I just I hope that people don't get discouraged because, like I said, we specifically are people who've never stopped fighting. You just might have
No.
been confused about what it is that you should be fighting for. You've been fighting for less hours at work when really you should have been fighting for your own shit. Um,
Right.
and that's not your fault. So once you pause, I promise, common sense given to you by the ancestors and the melanin in your veins, you'll get there.
I'm happy you mentioned that. It brought up something. I just sent you a text about it, but it leads us into the next one, a part of squid, the I. Imagine your choices. And what I take from imagining your choices is I'm not sure if this is me and my wiring from being in the military as well as a police officer is I run these scenarios through my mind all the time. We have these weird quirks where when we go to a restaurant, we don't sit with our back towards the door. I don't wear my purse on just one shoulder. I wear a crossbody. I don't have anything in my hand when I'm walking around. I'm always, imagining scenarios and imagining that outcome. And one thing that came to mind is to wake people up and say, look, don't be an NPC. And although I'm not really a gamer like that, but don't be a non player character. Don't just exist, you know, do something else. And the definition, I tried to look for a definition really quick. And there's a whole article. I'll link it and I'll show this on the screen is it asks the question, are you an NPC, a computer generated character driven by the code of simulation? Are you a conscious player in your life? And it says that most people in the world are called NPCs. They are characters existing, but they have no conscious control over their lives. And I think that perfectly sums up what the bystander effect is. So imagine your choices, then decide on a plan. Eve, I'll let you drive that one home.
I think that the imagining our choices, that's the scary part
Hmm.
inside of stopping to ask questions because it's the action part when you have to do something. Because again, when you're a bystander and it's other people around, why should you have to be the one to do something? They're going to ask you questions. You're going to have to stay there longer. You're going to have to give them your information. That's a lot of things that you hadn't really planned on doing, right? This was not how you envisioned the end of your day going. However, life started lifing around you in a big way, and now you have a chance to make a difference. Um, I think that that's how people should look at their choices that they have. You're making a difference, and you don't have to give them people your information. You can be anonymous, but if you don't say something, then you know for sure that you didn't say something. And then if it was 10 of y'all around and a bunch and all 10 of y'all didn't say something, well, y'all a scary group of people. I don't want to be around any of y'all. But I find that it just takes one, really. It really just takes one. Once one person is vocal about helping, other people are compassionate. And y'all forget that you have that in you. I know that you feel so cold, and we're cave people. We stay inside and we don't talk to our neighbors, and we're real technology, which is metals and
Or
coal.
the
You know.
excuse as a result of COVID, this post-COVID life.
Right, right. So now we're not people. No, y'all are people, and you've always been people, and you're never not
The
gonna be people.
tribal people, we are a tribal people. We exist within our community.
Absolutely. But even then, look, there's been studies and interviews where they've interviewed white people, and white people have said, I feel safer around y'all than I do around us.
Mm.
So it's like they talked to this white family, and they were telling the kids that if you ever get lost, or you by yourself or whatever, find you a big black man, and he's going to help you get to
Wow.
wherever it is you need to get to. And think of how fucking crazy that is, because we are like, um, you probably are going to come with some problems, especially our men. They have to go through so much
Yes,
already
they
that
do. Yes,
they
they do.
probably going to be thinking about staying away from you with a
Is this a
10-foot pole.
setup?
Right. But they know our humanity. So even though we know the danger, we still are the guardian angel, to the point where they've got us as the special nigga in most movies. We are the sidekick special nigga to them people. Like, so they've told you how they know how we are. We've forgotten how we are, because I guess maybe we've been busy being that for them. We can take that back.
You are the perfect example of taking that back. You're not an NPC. You are fighting, putting in the work for the justice and the reparations for Black Americans. And you, with everything you have going on, I don't know how you do it. You are my superwoman. You're up, you're working out, you're working, you're maintaining your family, your household, you're doing everything right. So I just want to thank you for setting that example, and you make me look within myself to make sure that I'm not slacking, to make sure that I'm not participating in the bystander effect, that I stand up for what is right, and not just be this NPC. So do
Look,
you have Mhm.
real quick on the NPC thing though. They, again, with the programming, they've got people thinking that you can't be main character and main
Mhm.
character syndrome and blah blah blah. Like, think about what y'all are saying in your life. Why shouldn't you be the main character? And I'm not
Right.
saying the sun's supposed to shine out your ass and people are supposed to bow to you. And I'm not saying that, but I am saying that, why aren't you doing what it is you feel like you should be doing? Why are you not where you want to be? And if you don't know, then maybe you have some questions, right? And now we're back to squid, because everything is connected. So I just I hope people don't feel like the bystander thing is just something that they experience with other people. Like, don't be a bystander in your own life because
Right.
you don't know that you can do something. You absolutely can do something, and you should. It's your life.
Mhm.
But maybe you're waiting for somebody else to help you. And if you are, I'm gonna tell you, what I've seen, it's not a lot of people out here trying to do. And maybe that's because they know deep down inside that they're not somebody who's trying to do. But, you got to ask some questions to get to some clarity.
And that takes us into a whole nother topic, which is, waiting on a savior. Many know on this channel, I'm not waiting on a savior. I'm my own damn savior, and each time where I've needed some help, no sky daddy or sky zombie has come out the sky to intervene. It's been other people, humans around me. So yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up.
That's for sure. I mean, I get it. We're people who've been conditioned to want and need a savior. But again, I'm trying to tell you, remember, you are people who have been fighting for a very long time. And not that that's our only experience, it's just our most recent experience. If you're
Right.
here today, you are the result of a people who've been fighting
Mm-hmm.
to be here. So own it.
Absolutely. Eve, I thank you so much for joining me again on another great exchange. And you definitely made me a better woman leaving this conversation than I was coming into it. Is there anything you want to leave us with, or tell everyone where they can find you for some great topics and also some great merch, and to get more of your brilliant thoughts?
Of course. And thank you for this conversation during Black Women's Appreciation Month, because I don't know what them other people have been doing other than being in the way and using up all the resources. But you can find me here on YouTube. We have two channels now. Millennials Adulting. It's new. We are adulting in real time. And I don't know if y'all got the playbook, but I didn't. And as such, I feel like maybe my stuck on stupid moments. I'm not the only one who was stuck on stupid because these people wanted to stay on top when they were supposed to be passing down the game. But maybe that's just my experience. That's what we talk about over there. And then Just Eve B is my other channel where I really like to get on them people's asses about what's owed to us across the board. So, whether it's justice for me, Just Eve, or if it's justice for us, we're speaking about that in a big way on my other channel. If you wanted to support our school, we have FBA Sunday School. That's every Sunday. Me and my co-teacher Isla, we talk with the minis for an hour um, on Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/FBA Sunday School. And lastly, if you want to support the family business, you can find us on Etsy. That's justeveagain.etsy.com. And that's all spelled out, justeveagain.etsy.com. If the math ain't mathin', say it with your chest. We have a hoodie on the site that I'm giving discounts to people who are speaking up for me in ways that they never thought that they would have to. Send me a DM and I will make sure you get that discount applied.
Beautiful. Well, until next time, we will see y'all later. Y'all be safe and don't be a bystander.